This magic moment, so different and so new, was like any other until I kissed you. And then it happened. It took me by surprise. I knew that you felt it too by the look in your eye. Sweeter than wine, softer than the summer night. Everything I want.
All right, folks. 9 o'clock, Sunday night. It's the Crack House Podcast. My name is Mike O'Sullivan. Joining me, as always, my buddy, my partner in crime, Chris Muscalino. What's up, dude?
Hola, Miguel. What's good, man?
Um, Not too much. Not very uneventful. Kind of like an uneventful week, I guess. Nothing crazy. I just waited for The Sopranos this whole week, which is what we're gonna probably take up 3/4 of the show.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, we got a lot of stuff that I wanted to get into. I know you want to talk stuff like every week. You know, we kind of put on the back burner, so hopefully we can reach everything. But no, it was a good week, man. Just very busy. The song I led into, obviously, a Sopranos reference, but I also I just DJ'd a kids party, a 12-year-old kid, not too far from me. Nice group of people. But like Mike, I was watching these kids like enjoy the music. They had the pool, jumping around, having a great time, and I'm looking at it. I made a reference on Facebook, and obviously I'm bringing this stuff up because it's making me think of The Sopranos and when we were kids. And I'm looking at these kids jumping in the pool and having a great time and bopping around to the music that I'm playing, and I'm like, I took the youth for granted, man. I mean, I had to.
Man, that's everybody though, man. That's like, well, what's the old saying? It's youth is wasted on the young, man. You don't know how good you have
I
it.
mean, I don't want to sound morbid and shit, but I'm looking at these kids, and I'm sure our parents look at us, and they say the same thing, and everybody, like the cliche says, but it's just watching that movie, the Many Saints of Newark, watching these kids tonight, all the throwbacks, the nostalgia, it just it brought me back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, all right, before we get into it, I just have one quick thing I want to say. There was a couple people I didn't mention last week, and I felt bad. Billy Pappas and Danny Rivera, two guys, as soon as I walked into the party, said they loved the show. So I got to say thanks to them. Billy is an Astoria idol. He's an Astoria legend, the Greek god Billy Pappas. Danny Rivera, thank you for your service. We love you. And there was a great little tribute they did to Detective John Hennessy. He was a retired first grade detective. He passed away about 2 years ago from cancer. He was retired. He was older guy. This guy was another like legend in the department. I was actually a cop with his son Brian, who was there. And last but not least, John McGuire, where were you? I am throwing the gauntlet down to you, my friend. 2024, you better be there. And you have no excuses. I will buy the ticket.
Be there, be square, Mr. McGuire.
Exactly. I'll pick you up. I'll drive all the way up to wherever you are up there in Putnam County and come and get you. So
I'll reach out to my friend Joe, make sure he gets to that one too.
All right. So let's get into it. The Many Saints of Newark.
Many Saints of Newark. So for all the military guys, and my father-in-law, your father, military guys, Marine, wearing a little Semper Fi hat today. Just
Semper Fi, do or die.
Do or die. Big Mike, this is for you. Mr. Devon, this is for you. All right. But going back to the Many Saints of Newark. So it's set in 1967, Mike. We just
yeah.
Me and Michael were talking a little bit off air about it. I loved it. I didn't think it was perfect. I thought there was some things that were corny. Me and Michael decided, I guess we're not going to give spoilers. We're not going to ruin it for anybody, but we're going to go into it a little bit. And I enjoyed it. That little thing that I just told you in the beginning of the show, it brought me back. It had a lot of callbacks. I think there was Really some really good casting, especially for Syl,
Yeah.
who played Syl. I think that guy nailed it. Shows you the toupee, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it like kind of finally was it a wig the whole time? I mean, it gives that away. Those guys are like the Silvio guy, the Paulie Walnuts, the Big Pussy. They're very underused in the movie, I guess we could say.
I agree.
You know, I read one review, and to me, it made perfect sense. It's like he kind of should have made this one like a 5-hour miniseries to really explore the characters. Because
I would agree. But like we were talking about, Mike, I mean, I think the game plan for them is to make more movies. I think Chase, other than the fact I think he was disgusted with HBO Max, as far as releasing it at the same time as it was streamed in theaters, put in theaters. I don't think he was really happy with that. But I guess the game plan, everybody's on board with it, seems to be making sequels to this movie, which, again, we're not going to give it away, but there's a lot to be desired, like Mike says. I mean, I went into this thinking that it was going to be perfect. I thought that the casting of the son was completely genius on everybody's, and I think he nailed Tony really well, other than being the fact that he's related. I thought some things, like you said, I think some characters could have been elaborated a little bit more on. But for the most part, I enjoyed the story. There's a surprise at the end, which you're going to have to watch it, right? And it were definitely throwbacks, like the Magic Moment song that I played at the beginning of the show, which is, I guess, and he says it. He says it throughout the, his most recent interviews, Mike, Dave Chase. He talks about he's like, if you watch it, he always gets pressed on what the final scene meant. Did Tony die? Did he not die? And there's two camps. Some Sopranos fans like me think he got whacked in Holstein's. Some don't. And Chase basically said it's all there. And the magic moment is a reference to the show, the episode with him and Bobby talking on the boat and talking about how you never hear it coming, And I guess being in law enforcement, you can kind of, relate to that a little bit, maybe not so much in a morbid way. But
no, I wasn't a mobster. I wasn't a mobster on a boat. I didn't have a $90,000 boat.
Allegedly, the guy that whacked Dickie Moltisanti, which we all knew from the series,
was a cop.
Right?
I think what happened with this one, like it's a 2-hour movie. Like you said, if you're a diehard Sopranos fan, you're gonna love everything about it pretty much. I think I'm a casual fan of the show. I haven't watched really an episode since it went off, maybe one or two here and there when it's been on HBO. With that being said, too much happens to that character in 2 hours. The Dickie Moltisanti character.
There's a lot of storytelling to go on. Yeah.
It's just too much in 2 hours. I didn't like that much. The Ray Liotta twist, kind of didn't enjoy either. I felt like I was watching General Hospital at that point.
The wife reminded me of like some of my old relatives from the other side, especially when I was young, like not too much English, that kind of deal. And
she was like Apollonia from The Godfather. That's what she reminded me of. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday.
She learned English quick, though. I'll tell you that. By the middle of the movie, she was pretty fluent in English. But no, look, man, I enjoyed it. I really look. I don't think it was perfect. I think for the diehards out there, you're gonna find if you want to find. Let's put it this way: if you want to find a bone to pick with it, you will.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. Like you said. I think you hit on it right off the head. There is some character development that I think that they didn't really elaborate on. I think that they stuffed a lot of stuff and a lot of story into 2 hours.
Yeah,
sets it up for future movies. I think one thing that I noticed and I picked up on, and I played the song, in the beginning of the show. Mike, you said it a couple episodes back. I remember when we were talking about this. The soundtrack is awesome, man. Unbelievably so good. I mean, it just like the I read something today like where the millennials and I guess the people that were too young to watch The Sopranos in the anticipation of this watched it again, and I think the music is definitely it's a catch. Going back, I did it too. I rewatched the series, and I'm sure your friend watched it too that we had on a couple of months ago. The music is phenomenal, man. Just it captures the era. I mean, I remember hanging out with you like in the early 80s, like late 70s, and or even at my grandfather's house or the people in the neighborhoods. It got it down, man. It got the time period down, the music down.
Yeah, it's always like that family you know, he
Right.
captures that like family gathering very well. There's like CBS FM playing the oldies in the background.
Exactly,
Like
man.
you know, there's people playing cards at a table or something like that. Like he does, he captures everything. He does a nice job doing that. Like you
Let me
said,
ask you this, Mike. So we never really got into this, but I think that The Sopranos, whether you're a fan or not, set the stage for shows like Breaking Bad and Mad
oh
Men.
yeah,
And without that, without The Sopranos, you never would have had those shows. The theme of the anti-hero becoming the main protagonist and the hero,
well,
even though he's really bad guy, you know?
Avi, yeah, definitely that. And it also is coupled with HBO is not a major network. HBO
Right.
is just a pay cable, channel that it took off. Like subscriptions actually went up when the show hit.
Absolutely.
Like when people
And they
realize how,
dropped, when the series was
yeah,
over.
exactly.
Right.
So did it definitely pave the way for like those Breaking Bad and all those other like smaller
The
networks,
Wire.
like
I don't think you don't have
the
the you don't have the
FX, the
Wire
Wire,
without
yeah,
Sopranos.
that show opened up the door where it was like you don't have to have like shitty writers and shitty actors. They got really great actors, really great writers, and that's what made that show a hit.
Right.
And like you said, it does. It paves the way for everything else HBO does now. Like if that show bombs, who knows? Is The Wire the show then that opens it up for everything? Who knows?
I don't think you get The Wire without The Sopranos. I don't think you get Mad Men. The reason I bring up Mad Men is what we were just talking about, right? So it captured the era. The music was phenomenal. Putting everything aside, I think they nailed the era. They nailed the clothes. They nailed the music. Mad Men. Mike, did you ever watch Mad Men?
No, never got into it.
Story of Don Draper and John Hamm's character, phenomenal. And I'll tell you what, if anything other than The Sopranos caught, I guess captured that period, it was Mad Men. If you have a chance, watch it. It brings me back to like hanging out in my grandfather's house as a kid, Astoria, hanging out with you guys, it had, I don't know if you remember it, Mike. Do you remember maybe your grandfather had it in his house? Remember they used to have like these monster radios in the living room,
Yeah. My aunt still has hers.
Right.
I think it's a Blaupunkt.
Okay.
The one
and it was really big. I guess back in the 30s and the 40s, they used to listen and gather around and shit.
It was
I remember in my poppy's house. I also remember they didn't do it in The Sopranos and The Many Saints of the Newark, but in Mad Men, you see stuff like the, when they used to like the old timers from the other side, they would like have like the plastic on the couches and stuff. Like I don't know if your grandmother and grandfather had it, but we had it. Little stuff like that, it just brings you back. And of course the gathering, the family gatherings, the cards, like it hit a nerve with me. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's perfect. I think if you're a diehard and you're going to look at something like the fact that Tony was born in 59, the show was set in 67, he would have been 8 years old. So there's kind of like a little discrepancy in terms of his age there. I did like things like Holstein's, where allegedly or not allegedly he got whacked. So there's a whole bunch of throwback scenes with that.
Well, I read the director of this, the guy Alan Taylor. He got interviewed and he said, "Do you think he gets killed?" He goes, "Absolutely,
absolutely,
dead."
Yeah, right."
And he went into the whole thing, and we talked about it. How, what is it? When him and Bobby are on the boat talking about, you never hear the bullet.
It's the only right.
It's the only line they've ever used as a voiceover,
right,
in the show. That's number one. And then he goes, the members only jacket, which is big. The guy wearing the members only jacket, if you call it back to the episode where Junior shot him, the title of that episode is Members Only.
And Chase said it. He goes, if you watch it, I'm not going to answer it, but it's all there. And allegedly he got tricked up in saying it. I think we brought this up in a previous, conversation, but look, man, I thought it was well done. Again, I don't think it was perfect. I think the Moltisanti character was really good. That actor, I've never really seen him before.
No, I had no idea who he was. The guy
he did a good job.
Yeah,
he did a really good job. I like the mother, Livia, who really was phenomenal. She was in The Departed, right? Vern
Vera Farmiga, whatever her name is. Yeah.
She was good. I like her as an actress. She's really good. She was great in The Departed. She was great in this. You could, well, I won't give that. Well, it was in the trailer. I mean, there's a brief scene with Carmela. So I think allegedly there was a scene that they left on the cutting table with Carmela. Where I guess
she actually had a scene. They cut it out. Yeah.
They cut it out. And I like Paulie. The character who played Paulie was right on target. Some of the other guys, I don't know. I mean, Big Pussy. I mean, the father, those guys, they look like throwbacks from the Goodfellas and, I guess the mobster movies from the 70s and the 80s. It was hard to say.
Yeah, it was like you said. It did. It had its moments. I thought it was good. I think you're definitely going to see now, like they're going to do the progression now, like we were talking off air. They're going to do that progression from this movie. All right, now what is the next 10 years of that family like? And the next 10 years.
Right. And I think you're right on spot with that, Mike. I also think that, you know what? I think for people that witnessed this stuff, and I'm not going to get political here, but the backdrop of it is the race riots in Newark in '67. And, we all look at last year and everybody, they have your opinions one way or the other. I watched that, as far as the Sopranos, the Many Saints of Newark. It really gives you a good depiction. What happened last year isn't a new thing. This has been going on for 50, 60 years. You had the riots in Newark, right, that they showed you in the movie. They showed you the shit. Well, they didn't go into it, but there's been stuff in Detroit. There's been stuff, throughout the years. When Martin Luther King got killed, there were riots. So what happened last year wasn't a novelty. It just happened to happen in an election year, I believe. But, watching that that Many Saints of Newark movie, I think a lot of people, maybe hopefully they get the same take that I did, in the sense that last year wasn't a novelty. I mean, this stuff's been going around and it looked like they got it pretty good. I mean, there were no cameras back then. I think you brought it up a couple episodes ago about certain things that, had happened back then. You just didn't see it, because it wasn't recorded to that level, but right.
Exactly. Yeah. There weren't cameras back then. So there was a lot of stuff we didn't see.
Right. I think we were talking about Woodstock. Remember, we were talking about Woodstock, and when I was watching that documentary, like they talked about, well, the '69 one wasn't all rose-colored glasses either. There's a lot of crap.
No, yeah, we got into all the shit that happened there too.
So I think they really did a good depiction. I like the historical aspect of the movie. I really wish that, to be honest with you, I think I would have liked to see more of the character, that a little bit of his underling. The guy that hooked up with his wife, and I guess hooked up with what's his face, the crime lord from Harlem, which was the subject of the Russell Crowe and Denzel movie. Remember? Yeah,
American Gangster. Yeah.
American Gangster, right?
Yeah, like I said, it compressed too much into too little time. They could have. I think they definitely could have stretched this out into like a 4-hour miniseries.
Well, let me ask you this, Mike. Would you have been cool if they had done a Irishman type length movie with this?
What do you mean, made it 4 hours?
Well, I don't know what the exact time was of the Irishman, but the Irishman, I think, was going on 3 hours. Would you have been cool, like, if he had stretched it out for like another hour?
You know what? Because I haven't seen The Sopranos in so long, I probably would have been cool with it. And just in the age we live in now, I can watch it for an hour and a half and shut it off, and then go back the next day and click on and watch the rest of it. So it's not like the same thing. I could have. I know when The Irishman came out, there was within like 2 days online. You could go online and figure out how to break that up into like watching it in pieces. It was like, watch the first 45 minutes and stop it. Then watch it for an hour and 28 minutes and stop it. Then watch it for this long. And it's, it was just, they had it broken up into like 3 or 4 pieces, how you could watch that movie. And yeah, I would have been totally cool if you went 3 or 4, if you went 3.5 hours with this.
You've been all right with it.
Because like I said, we live in the time now where you can just shut it off and just go back and watch it later. And like we said, we talked about the character development. There was a lot of stuff like left out.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't go into it. It's just they didn't just like. I thought the Junior character was great.
I did too.
And I want to see him get his own movie. That's how good the guy was.
Possible.
You know,
without giving it away. I mean, I think there's things in the story of Junior that are portrayed in this movie that I think will solidify your opinion of what happened to Tony one way or the other. And I think as much as the story was about Dicky Moltisanti, I could also make a case that was about Junior, about how Junior was passed up and I guess overshadowed by the brother and Moltisanti. Yeah. And I guess, it was a story of fathers and sons to an extent, right?
Yeah.
I think they did a good job with him. I would agree with that. There was some characters, like you said, that left a little bit to desired, but I don't know if you remember, Mike. Remember back in like the 90s and stuff when we were still in the VCR DVD age? Remember Titanic? Remember Titanic came in like two VCR. Yeah. Remember the movies that were released as two VCRs tapes?
Yeah,
like Braveheart.
Tapes, yeah.
Braveheart was another one, right?
Yeah.
I remember Titanic being one of those.
I think anything that hit the 2-hour mark
was broken up into two tapes, right?
Mm-hmm. I remember what was it? Dances with Wolves. I think it was the first movie I rented, and it was like 3 hours.
3 hours, yeah. Like I gotta be honest with you, Braveheart is probably arguably my favorite movie of all time, right? That was probably the first one that I remember that was broken into two VCR tapes. Then I think it was Heat in '95 with De Niro and Pacino, which was another one. Titanic. Yeah. And then I really didn't give it much thought until I guess The Irishman came out like a year or 2 years ago, whatever it was. And I'm like, I saw some people really, bitching because it was so long. I enjoyed it. And like you said, I think for me personally, I could have gone with another hour of the movie. I would have been cool with it.
Oh yeah, definitely. But all right, we'll see. Well, let's just see what they do, and maybe we'll revisit this in a couple of weeks with all the spoilers. We'll let people watch the movie and then.
Yeah, I definitely. There's some stuff that I would love to talk about with you. I just don't want to mess it up.
The one thing I did that really got me in the beginning was the voiceover in the beginning.
Oh yeah, man!
Great scene. We're not ruining it. It's just a narration in the beginning of the movie. It's really great, and it puts you in a completely different mindset of the movie. Like, oh shit! And then you just start. It's really good.
Without giving it away completely, we'll give you this. So the voiceover is, I think, the only appearance by one of the characters in the original series.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, guys. You don't see the character. It's just a voiceover, which is really cool.
Yeah.
The ending scene, which Mike doesn't like, we're not going to give it away. I could have taken it either way. But obviously the song at the end of the movie. Phenomenal.
Starts and let's put it this way. If you saw Rogue One, figure it out, folks. Kind of just all right, enough. Let's talk about, you just saw the movie, the Doug Kinney movie about National Lampoon.
Man, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And you educated me like when we talked about it. So I was bruising, there's some stuff that you've been telling me about that we've been trying to get to. I've been trying to get to watch. And I came across this movie. And look, for folks out there of our age bracket, Animal House, National Lampoon, for me and Mike, I mean, we have the same, I guess, sense of humor and taste in movies for the most part. I mean, those movies were what we grew up with, Animal House, right? And I came across this National Lampoon. It's the story about Doug Kinney and I guess the co-founder of the magazine, National Lampoon, right? Now, originally I thought it was Mad Magazine, which is what I thought originally the movie was about, but it wasn't. I do remember the National Lampoon magazine back in the day. You go up to the smoke shop in Ditmars Boulevard, 31st Street underneath the L, and they'd have like all the newspapers and the comics. And I remember the magazine was there. I don't really remember buying it, Mike. I guess
it was too over our heads. I think like 12 years. It was very highbrow kind of comedy.
Right.
Yeah. I think the first time I ever looked at one was remember when Rob worked at the comic book store?
Mm-hmm.
They used to get them there. And I remember just perusing through it one day. And it was like, you started reading it. Some of it was funny. Some of it was it's just over your head. because you're a 13 or 14-year-old kid and you're not getting, Richard Nixon jokes really at 14, at
There's
1980.
a guy in that comic store, and there's a guy I actually work with. He's probably maybe about 4 or 5 years older than us, Larry. Maybe he watches the show. Larry remembers that comic shop, and he remembers the guy Remo. I don't know if you remember the guy. He was an interesting character. I guess when Rob was working there, he was either an owner or a part owner. I don't know, but
he looked like comic book guy.
He did.
This guy looked like comic book guy from The Simpsons. That's the only way,
Absolutely good. Mike hit it right on the head. He was a cool guy, but he was comic book guy from The Simpsons, absolutely. But so that was my experience with National Lampoon. I never really bought it, and I guess by the time we got of age, and I guess you picked it up not only for the not so much for the highbrow comedy, the stuff that was above our heads as teenagers, and maybe even now, who knows, but I guess at some point they were showing raunchy shit in there, nudie pictures. And by that time I was into Playboy, so I wasn't buying a National Lampoon, magazine to check out the girls and, the nude girls. I was buying a Playboy. So I kind of graduated from comics to basically Hustler and Playboy and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think by the time we would have gotten into it, they were going out of business anyway. I think it was like the late 80s, early 90s, it started to fizzle out anyway, and we would pass that. So
but I saw the movie, Mike, and you educated. You said you had seen the documentary, which I haven't seen, but it's phenomenal. Like basically the movie's about this guy who found the National Lampoon magazine. He went to Harvard with this other guy. They came out, I guess, and out of Harvard in the 60s. They couldn't really get a job, who knows, whatever the deal was, or they didn't want to do anything. They founded this magazine. I guess they got funded by the guy or the owner of Weight Watchers magazine. That's who funded them.
Yeah, the guy that started throwing money at them. Fine, like, here, okay, because I think they had failed originally with their own money, and then got this guy to back them. And I mean, it seems if you go to Harvard anyway, you're probably a rich kid,
right?
So that's what Doug Kinney and this other guy were. They were rich kids. And basically what they did, they ripped off the Harvard Lampoon,
Okay.
Which was,
right.
That was the magazine that they had there, the Harvard Lampoon. And they were just like, let's make it national.
Now I'll tie this in for you, Mike. So we just talked about The Sopranos being a groundbreaking show for shows like The Wire or Mad Men or Breaking Bad, the whole theory of the anti-hero being a hero. Well, I think National Lampoon, what they did was, and I think they mentioned it in the movie, maybe they did in the documentary as well. They talked about how for the first time, the president of the United States was open season. I guess Nixon was in office, and, I guess the guy's father, Doug Kinney, I guess when the magazines start to really take off, he's like, you're a real piece of work. He goes, you're making fun of the president. Who the hell are you? And lo and behold, 30 years later, it doesn't matter really who the president is. Some get it more than others, obviously, but the president is no longer a hollowed subject. He's open season. And I think that National Lampoon really set the stage for that.
Well, National Lampoon opened the door for it. And they said if you talk to reporters that were around the time of Watergate, they said he was the president where everything came down no matter what. And I mean, the Lampoon definitely had a lot to do with it, but reporters in general, everyone started digging in, when it came to, who was it, G. Gordon Liddy and all of that. And they just, all the president's men, Deep Throat, all of that stuff. There was no more guarded secrecy and like this distance you kept from the president.
It was open season, right?
It was just, he was a regular person.
Then I guess what happened was the magazine got really popular, and I guess there was talks about them making a TV show, which I think he declined, and he ended up writing Animal House. I guess he stepped away from the magazine. He wrote the screenplay, and I guess I guess he directed it. And something I didn't know.
No, he didn't. That was
Harold Ramis.
Harold Ramis directed it. He wrote it, and I think he might have been one of the producers on it.
And he was in it.
And he was Stork.
He was Stork. God knows, what was the line, Mike?
What the hell are we supposed to do, you moron?
Morons, right? And then what was the other one? Stork here, he's brain dead or something to that effect, right?
Everyone thought the Stork was brain damaged.
Right, the Tim Matheson speech, right?
That was a lot of great lines in that movie.
And then I guess he took like a hiatus. He got wrapped up, I guess, in the late 70s with coke and drugs and stuff.
Oh, yeah, the guy was a massive
drug addict, right?
Like, they kind of delve into it a little bit in that movie. The documentary is just like, listen, man, it was the 70s and early 80s. We were all on cocaine.
Right.
Like everyone, they talked about a meeting in the documentary that he goes into. He goes into some studio meeting at like 9 o'clock in the morning and puts a whole line of coke down his forearm like this, and then just goes, all right, what are we talking about today? And everyone was just like, okay, all right, we want to do this, we want to do that. And
yeah, insane, man. He was good friends with Chevy Chase. I think you said to me off air that Chevy Chase was like his best friend. He was friends with Belushi, obviously. And I guess he was kind of bitter towards the end of his life. I guess he was so wrapped up in the drugs. But I guess Lorne Michaels from Saturday Night Live basically stole his characters, his guys. He rated them. He basically put together the TV show that he declined making years ago. Belushi, Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, all those guys, I guess, left his stable and went to, I guess, start Saturday Night Live. And as Saturday Night Live, I guess, started to really get big, I think on some level, Lorne Michaels made an overture for him to come aboard. And he was like, why would I do that? You stole the show. He goes, you stole my idea,
If you get more into, like I said, if you watch the documentary, I thought was amazing about Doug Kinney. And what really kind of like turned him was Animal House was his first movie. And it was just this huge success. Like, they couldn't believe how much money they made off the movie. There's actually, I read somewhere, Donald Sutherland's the biggest name in the movie. He plays the professor.
In Animal House.
Donald Sutherland was offered a chunk of the movie, like a percentage of what it made. Or it was just because he was only on the set for 3 days. He goes, no, I want 50 grand. This movie won't make anything. I think when they did the math, he goes, if I would have taken the percentage, I would have walked away with about $10 million. He goes, but I made $50,000 for 3 days of work, and I thought I was getting over. I mean, it's like the old Madden.
Listen, the guy who
John Madden's the same way. John Madden took a one lump sum chunk of money for the video game, and supposedly he'd be a billionaire right now. So
I still play that game 30 years later.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But they said after the success of Animal House, he did Caddyshack.
Right.
Which technically isn't a National Lampoon movie. It's just Caddyshack. It should be, it's for all intents and purposes, it is. And Caddyshack did not perform as well as Animal House. And supposedly that threw him in a massive depression.
But allegedly, I think behind Animal House, it was the second grossest of a comedy of all time. Am I wrong with that?
But it wasn't the home run Animal House. They said it really it screwed with his head. And people have said it. They're like, listen, Animal House was a home run. You hit a triple with, you got up again and you hit a triple, and you hit a triple with Caddyshack, which is,
not bad.
Both of those movies are still, cult classics to this day.
To this day, yeah, absolutely.
People still quote Caddyshack. If you go golfing, you quote Caddyshack.
Now, it's funny, like we talked about this before, Mike. I mean, I don't think either of those movies get made today in the same way that they did back in the 70s. And going back to The Many Saints of Newark for a second, I read an interview with Chase where Chase was like, I guess somebody posed the question of, don't you think some of the stuff that's in here is racially insensitive or, whatever. They were accusing him, I guess of highlighting the mafia and highlighting, Italian Americans, who are in the mafia, of being racist and, I guess glorifying it. And he was like, look, that's what it is. He goes, I'm not going to offend anybody. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. But going back to Caddyshack and Animal House for a second, I don't know if those movies get made today, or at least in the same way.
No, there's a lot of scenes you gotta. No, people wouldn't. Like I said, we get into it all night, but there's definitely a whole bunch of scenes where, no, that's not going to happen.
It's not happening, right?
It's just not going to happen.
But the sad part of this thing was I didn't realize that this guy passed away maybe a year or two before Belushi, and I guess he was out in his house or on vacation. He was, I think, on vacation in Hawaii with Chevy Chase, right? I think you mentioned to me. I didn't see the documentary, but allegedly, he either committed suicide or he jumped off a cliff or he slipped off a cliff. And I guess they made a joke about it, at his funeral. They're like, yeah, he just didn't find the right place to jump, that kind of deal. They kind of made a joke of the fact that, the guy either offed himself or slipped and fell in a cocaine-induced, frenzy. But, dude, for those movies were classics. They still are today. I don't care if they could be made today or not. I love them. I grew up with them. I know you did. And I came across that, just like, some of the stuff that we wanted to talk about. And I thought it was phenomenal. I think some of the casting was really good. Some of it, like The Many Saints, I think they could have gone a little bit more into, but I enjoyed it, man. I enjoyed it. And I think that if you're of the age of 35 to 50 years old and you like comedy, I think it's well worth, taking a look at.
Definitely watch both. Watch the movie, which I think is like Will Forte plays him.
He did good, man. He was good.
And then the documentary, and I think they're both still on Netflix. So
I'm going to check out the documentary. I
think it's a little bit longer than the movie. And it goes just into like a little bit more in depth. Like it really gets into the guy's life. Like I said, I think he grew up very privileged kind of kid, and went away to Harvard and started writing and didn't know what he really wanted to do, but then got into the Lampoon and got into all that and realized what he wanted to do, and then started writing, started the magazine. It really gets into everything. And they interview tons of people. A lot of people that worked on that magazine when it first started, like you said, how Lorne Michaels took a lot of the performers over. He also took a ton of their writers over too.
Right.
So it gets into this whole thing, and it's really good, and it shows like his little downward spiral towards the end of his life, and really sad. He was a guy that people really think like he was the next big thing. He was going to be like this. He was going to be like another Lorne Michaels, where he was going to create something that was going to last 40 years, or just keep making these comedies like every couple of years that he just knocks them out of the park.
And listen, I'll bring something up. So going back to him, so he was an unknown, at least for us, right? We just knew the big stars.
Yeah.
There's there's a couple of celebrity deaths that have hit me hard throughout my lifetime. James Gandolfini really hit hard for me because I was a big fan of the show. It just set, when he passed away in 13 or 14, whenever it was, I felt like there was a finality to the show. It solidified my opinion that he got whacked, even though it didn't really have much to do with it, if anything at all, with the show in the series. And it really, it touched me. I didn't know James Gandolfini. I never came in contact with him, but, that death, really, really touched me. The other one that really touched me, besides Strummer in 2002, was John Belushi.
Yeah.
Remember when he passed away?
Yeah, I remember that. We were in like 4th or 5th grade, or I think 4th grade, and it was
right.
Yeah, it was just really, because he had just, the Blues Brothers was just this huge movie.
Oh man, we loved
And then
that.
it was like, dude, the guy's dead. He's like 30. What was he? 32 or something?
33 years, so 32 years old, man.
Yeah, crazy.
The only other one that comes to mind that hurt, for me as a kid was Thurman Munson in '79. When he passed away in the plane crash. But Belushi, I remember, man, we were young, and I loved all those movies. We used to laugh at them all the time, man. We grew up with them. And who the hell? Let me ask you a question. What do you think would have happened if Belushi lived?
It's a loaded question, but
do you think he would have went on and had a really great, second half of his career?
Here's the thing, man. He did that Continental Divide, which was kind of a bomb.
Right.
Like
him and question, right?
Well, like him and Farley are on like that same path. Like, think about what's Farley's last movie, Beverly Hills Ninja, really? And that's kind of like
I like
kind
Farley.
of a.
I just
kind of a
Farley's in the same ballpark as Belushi. I really don't. I like Farley a lot, And maybe people watch this and say, "Oh, you're out of your mind." He had some big hits. He did, but to me, Belushi was a much, much bigger star than Foley. I'm just trying to think. Another guy that comes to mind, who did live and
Well,
had kind of two careers. Let me ask you a question. To me, Al Pacino is like two different guys. There's Scarface and pre-Scarface Pacino, and then he's had some movies, from 1983 on that have been pretty good. But between The Godfather, Scarface, Serpico, I mean, I don't think the second half of Pacino's career is really that great, to be honest with you.
No, it's the same. Like we were just saying. I think Belushi, would have turned into, because think about it. Look at Dan Aykroyd's career. It's
right.
Not stellar really after, the early 80s. Ghostbusters. Okay. I think Belushi would have been on like that same path where he would have been in a movie in a nice little supporting role, being the funny guy or something. He wouldn't have been the main star anymore. I think if he that's probably where his career would have went, being like the funny sidekick or something like that.
And with this guy from Lampoon, do you think? Obviously, he was on par with him. He could have, I guess, his path could have been Lorne Michaels, right?
Yeah, he could have created, or he would have created like another TV show, or he could have just cranked out movies every couple of years. And I'm sure listen, you make enough movies, you're going to have some bombs here and there, but I'm sure he would have been smart enough to put the right writers in a room to make funny movies. Who do you have? Was it Eugene Levy and Brian Doyle Murray, Bill Murray's brother, wrote Caddyshack? Those two guys basically wrote Caddyshack.
Eugene Levy's great, man.
And then like everything else, like I know with Caddyshack, like the Bill Murray character originally was to have no lines.
In Caddyshack.
Bill Murray was supposed to come down, I think, for like 3 days. They were like, listen, we're just going to film some scenes with you for like 3 days. You have no lines.
Well, they talked about Bill Murray, who I guess they wanted him to, they gave him the offer, and I guess he was in France or something. They didn't even know if he was going to show up.
No, that was for Ghostbusters.
Oh, was it for for Ghostbusters? I'm sorry, that the Ghostbusters movie, right? So Ghostbusters, I saw that on movies that made us, and like, we didn't know if this guy was going to show up.
Yeah, then he just showed up that day, like, all right, let's go. Where's the script? But for Caddyshack, he was supposed to be there for 3 days, and then he just started goofing around, and they were like, fuck. So he wound up staying there for 2 weeks, and I think he wrote all his own dialogue. Like that
apparently, I guess the guys who made the movie, they couldn't stand the fact that the golfer was in it. They were like, I guess the guy who bankrolled the movie was like, what the F is this? This is ridiculous. This stupid doll. And I guess he threw the doll across Kenny's desk and something to that effect. He goes, you got to be effing kidding me, spending all this money on this movie, and you got this dopey little doll running around, There were a couple of gems out of that,
what did they said his like Bill Murray's famous scene in that movie is when he's hitting the flowers. Cinderella's the original cut of that scene, they said, is like almost 20 minutes of him just riffing. And they were like, nah. We got to cut this down. And they cut it down. I think it's only like a 3-minute scene now.
Have you ever seen the YouTube video, Mike, about the guy who plays Leslie Chow in The Hangover? There's about a 9-minute riff, kind of like what you talk about with Bill Murray, where they're exchanging money in exchange for Doug. And dude, this guy goes crazy. Like he curses, he says some unpolitically correct shit that, if you enjoy that kind of humor, you're going to piss your pants. Like, I love The Hangover. I thought it was hysterical. That's so great, the second and third one. But that first one had me peeing in my pants. I still say lines from the movie to this day. And like you said with Murray, there's a YouTube video, Google search it, about, I guess, Ken Jeong, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Right? Not the guy from North Korea. Sorry, probably butchered the name. But Leslie Chow's character, he's in character. And for about 9 minutes, they let him riff. And they're cutting the scenes, and he's just going crazy and saying the most outlandish shit. So I'm sure with Bill Murray, probably something similar to that.
I tell you, man, every now and then you go on YouTube and just type in the term like deleted scenes, and the shit that pops up sometimes, or like either type in like deleted scenes or alternate endings, and you'll just find like some Die Hard 3.
Okay.
One with Jeremy Irons, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
The alternate ending for that is so stupid. He kills him with the helicopter when he shoots him down in the helicopter.
Right.
The alternate ending is he gets away. Bruce Willis tracks him down to this ski lodge in like Switzerland.
Yeah.
And then like they're sitting at the table. Bruce Willis puts a grenade launcher, whatever you want to call it, a bazooka, like a little bazooka on the table, hits a button and blows him out through a window. It's like one of the dumbest things. Why would they do that?
Let me ask you this, Michael. So have ski lodges gone the way of the roller skating ring? I remember back in the 80s they were
no people still,
are they still around?
People still ski. People love to go skiing on, in cold. I take my kids skiing every year.
Yeah.
And it's packed. People love to go skiing. So I don't know.
My wife loves skiing.
Roller skating rinks are like, how many are out by you? There's probably like one or two left.
There was one underneath the L on 31st.
And, there was the old Roller Royce.
Right?
That was back in the day. But
I'm just trying to think of like the ski lodge, the infamous mythical ski lodge from the 80s that you see in Hot Tub Time Machine and that kind of shit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're still around. But, I mean, for me, it seems like where I take my kids every year, it just seems like it's more family oriented.
Okay.
The single scene of ski lodges and things like that. That's probably more at night. At night, I'm not there. I'm back at the hotel room sleeping.
Yeah.
See,
I mean, my wife loves skiing. My wife loves skiing, right? She's always bugged me to go skiing. And me personally, I skied when I was in college for a little bit. I wasn't great at it. And what came to mind, what always ran through my mind at some point was when Sonny Bono crashed into the tree. And I'm like, you know what? This is not for me. I'm not great at it. I don't want to go out like Sonny did. And that was the end of skiing for me. So.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I've tried it a few times. I didn't take to it. Didn't like it.
Skiing, same deal. I can't balance myself. You get on the thing, the boat goes off, and I end up doing a somersault, and that kind of deal.
Falling down, and then you got to go down like this on the skis, like your special needs.
And I so wanted to master that, Mike, because all I kept on thinking about was Fonzie jumping the shark. And I'm like. I want to be like Fonzie, man. I want to get up on those jet skis, and I want to
Rectamundo
with the leather jacket, no less.
Of course, there would be Fonz, the coolest guy on TV at one time. That guy could do no wrong.
No.
I thought he'd have a bigger movie career.
I do too.
Kind of like
fizzled out.
Yeah, the show ended, and then it was just kind of like gone.
He had a couple roles where I think he popped up in a couple Adam Sandler movies. I think The Waterboy he was in.
He was Coach Klein. Klein.
But other than that, man, I mean, I don't really remember Henry Winkler really having too much afterwards, right?
No, I think he produced a couple like TV shows, and then I think he was one of the original producers of the original MacGyver.
Was he?
And I think like that was it, and he's just kind of like skated on that for a while. I think he's on some show now on HBO. And like you said, he was in like Adam Sandler put him in one or two movies, and that's been it.
What always fazed me about those shows, Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, the overabundance, and I'm saying this, because I'm Italian American. There seemed to be like an overabundance of Italian Americans in Milwaukee in the 1950s and 1960s. Now I realize, Coach Lombardi left the Giants back in the day to coach, the Green Bay Packers. But I'm watching that. I'm like, wow, I just thought that Italians kind of like settled like in California and New York. What the hell are they doing in Wisconsin?
A little Florida. Milwaukee.
Florida. Yeah, that kind of shit. I'm like, what are they doing there? It's freezing. This is not really their deal,
Maybe those northern Italians, the ones by the Alps.
Right.
Maybe they settled there. Yeah, that is, yeah. But actually, Fonzie is like half Jewish too, I think. The character. The character
is half Jewish?
Well, he would talk about his Grandma Nussbaum all the time. I don't think Grandma Nussbaum's Italian.
You know what? There's a guy that I've been trying to get on forever, Dave. Dave is half Maltese, half Jewish. and Dave will tie in any major actor to Jewish heritage. Doesn't matter if they have it or not. You know, like Sylvester Stallone, half Jewish.
He
You know,
is. I never knew
right.
that.
I never knew that either. And Dave
I
really, he put me onto a couple
Mhm.
characters. You know, I think Sylvester Stallone, Pacino, not Pacino, De Niro, I think is half Jewish.
De Niro. Want to hear a crazy De Niro fact?
Go ahead.
I think if you break down his lineage, he's more like Irish than Italian.
Is he?
I think he's only like a quarter Italian on his father's side.
I think
Or like he's half.
got a good
I
deal
think
of Jewish in him too.
he's like I think half like Italian from his father.
Right.
His father was like Italian, Scottish, Irish, or whatever, and the mom is just like a crazy mix as well. So
if we get Dave on here at some point, he'll give you the breakdown on how many Italian Americans are really half Jewish or Jewish. Henry Winkler, I didn't know. Well, Fonzie, I didn't know the character was half Jewish, but that's a good point. Now I'd have to go back and watch it. You know, Grandma Nussbaum doesn't
Grandma
down to Paisano, if you catch my drift.
What else do we have? Oh, we've been holding on to this one for like 3 weeks. I don't think this guy was Jewish though. Bob Ross.
Bob Ross, man. We checked out the documentary on
Yeah, yeah. What'd you think? Well, what did you think?
I thought the guy got shafted, but I'll tell you what, I don't think he was too shrewd. I don't think he was too shrewd, or I don't think he liked his kids too much, because I guess the guy that really got the shaft, so to speak, was the kid.
Yeah.
You know, I guess he got taken advantage of, or maybe he didn't. I guess at some point the interest of the business, I guess when he passed away, you know, got pushed over to the brother. The brother basically made a deal with the people that I guess bankrolled him and iced out the son, and that was pretty much it. You know, I'm not a big fan of that, Mike. You know, I'm a big family guy. You know, don't screw your kids. You know,
I didn't. Like you said, I hear what you're saying with that. I didn't. Here's what honestly Netflix has been doing lately with their documentaries. It ends on such a flat note.
Yeah.
And
I took the same thing, right?
They've done this with like a few of their documentaries recently, where it's like they pump it up, and it's like 3 or 4 episodes. And when you watch all 4, you realize this could have been 3 episodes. They put in 1 extra episode for nothing, and the ending it always seems like the same way that we talked about the Hotel Roosevelt, the Chinese girl that went in the water tank. That documentary.
Right.
It was the same thing. They kept building it up like it was this mysterious force that took her. And then right at the end, they interviewed one of her family members like, oh, she was severely, severely depressed. And she had talked about killing herself a few times. And she was on tons and tons of antidepressants. And she went off her medication. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. That makes a lot of sense then.
I liked it. I mean, I remember the guy. I remember the goofball stuff that they used to do on Saturday Night Live about the guy with his afro and stuff. I guess he was a pretty flamboyant guy, you know, dressing up in different outfits and stuff. Yeah, different hairstyles. I guess the hairstyle was a choice. You know, I think he kind of.
I didn't know that was I didn't know it was a wig at the end when he was dying. He actually wore that perm wig when he was dying.
I guess he idolized what's his face, Mr. Brady, right?
You know? he went with the perm.
With the perm, right?
That was a heavy commitment, man.
I liked it, man. I liked it. Like you said, I thought that it might have gotten an episode too much, but at the end of the day, none of this stuff is perfect, and I think a lot of it comes down to money. Maybe they get a contract to do the extra episode. Who knows?
Yeah,
that kind of deal.
Yeah, like I said, I do feel bad. Like you said, the kid got screwed out of probably tons and tons of cash.
I'm just not a big fan of that. I know Bill Gates is kind of does that with his kids, like he's giving them money and stuff. But the guy's a billionaire and he's giving like most of it away, and he's giving those kids a fraction of the money. Dude, take care of your kids, man. You know, I mean,
listen, there's some behind the scenes shit. He could say whatever the f he wants, Mr. Bill Gates. Listen, let's put it this way. What does he own? He owns Microsoft, right? Or whatever it is.
Right.
How many shares of Microsoft are those kids getting on top of just maybe $10 or $15 million?
I don't
Billions.
know. Yeah, listen, those kids getting taken care of. I'm just saying, you know, you read stories where, you know, a lot of these guys, for whatever their reasons, don't really take care of their families. And it just seemed like, watching this Ross documentary, I can't really pinpoint it. Maybe it did, maybe didn't. Why are you signing the rights away to your brother? Wouldn't you do it to your son? I mean, unless the son
Yeah,
was a dickhead, that kind of deal.
yeah, I don't know what the whole shebang came down to with that. And like you said, they don't get into it. They don't get into talking to the brother at all.
Right.
They only talk to the son. It's like an unfinished documentary if you think about it. Like, why would you not? You need the brother's opinion for the documentary, and they don't do that.
Right. I don't, in all fairness to them, I think it may have been like the guy declined to come on the show, that kind of deal.
No,
Like,
he did. I know towards the end they put up a thing like because of legal issues.
right.
That family that owns all of Bob Ross's stuff is basically like real quick to sue anyone anytime they talk about them. So I know he did say something like, "Well, I'm not going to come on because I don't want to get sued."
Right.
But I mean, I don't know. They could have figured something out to do a better ending to that.
Talking about families real quick. So going back to our little Long Island drama here. So, the flip side of the coin is Brian Laundrie's family, who I think has kind of, I think when all said and done, Mike, and you'll give me a better opinion, from a law enforcement perspective, I think these people obstructed an investigation. From what I'm reading, what I see, it looks like that they're kind of playing everything close to the vest. There's conflicting information.
Oh yeah, they're not listen. Murderer. You know what it is? Like murderer or not, they're not going to give their kid up.
No.
So.
But here's the deal: like, if the FBI or the police department come in, hey, have you seen his son? No, we haven't. Oh, well, Dog says you checked into a.
Yeah, what's up with Dog, man? Dog is honest, dude. Not as some canine guy I just saw in the news.
Right.
Everyone wants to. If Dog catches this guy, he's gonna.
Oh. Well, I put it on. I saw one guy who watches the show. He kind of like put a little dig at me, but I think it's a legitimate question. Do you trust the dog or do you trust the FBI? I mean, listen, I believe in the institutions. I believe in letting people do their jobs and stuff. But, on the flip side, it's like you said, if this guy were to find him, if Dog were to find him, right, before the FBI, what does that say?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing's been botched, in my opinion. And here's the thing. He found a crucial piece of evidence. The family's like, oh, we haven't seen him. Oh, you did. You saw him on the 6th and the 8th. And you saw him on the 9th to the 11th, allegedly on the day the guy disappeared. The problem that I'm reading, Mike, and again, you can confirm this, is that I guess the longer the kid goes without, being found, the tougher it is to be able to get him. Because allegedly this family is not cooperating in the sense that they don't even want to give the authorities, like, I guess, elements of the guy's clothing or his DNA so that the dogs can pick up on him. To find the scent, so to speak. And here's the deal. The family's like, oh, we want to find him. We want to find him. You want to find him, but I guess your actions are kind of speaking like the other way around.
Yeah, dude, it's that kid, man. You're not going to give up your kid. Yeah. That's the bottom line, man. People aren't going to get, fuck you. What are you going to do to my kid when you get him? You're going to put him in jail for the rest of his life? Fuck you. Let him run.
Yeah.
And then they put out the whole thing. What is it? He's on the Appalachian Trail. It's 2,000 miles, man. Good luck. I think Dog. If Dog finds him, you're going to see a new Dog show within 6 months of that, man.
Absolutely.
He's back on top, man. He found the most wanted guy in the United States right now. If he catches this kid.
Yes. I think John Walsh is in on it too.
Dude, all these famous people that are trying to get in on this. Everyone wants to cash in on this guy.
Speaking of famous people that, well, maybe we'll get into this next week, when we talk about it a little bit more in detail. I watched a cult classic of ours that we enjoyed as kids, Escape from Alcatraz. Oh, remember that one? With Clint Eastwood?
Classic Eastwood.
I'm watching Ghost Adventures, which as we get close to Halloween, we'll go into that a little bit, hopefully. But they do a whole show about paranormal activity at Alcatraz. And the reason I bring it up is, I guess at the time, that was the 3 escapees that kind of closed down Alcatraz.
Yeah.
Right. And they did interviews with the people, the surviving people from Alcatraz that knew these guys. And they asked him a question. They're like, do you think this guy really disappeared? Kind of like this guy, Brian Laundrie. He goes, no, he died. They all died. He goes, why would you say something like that? There's been paranormal stuff that's, apparently the Alcatraz is very haunted, and they never recovered the bodies. They never found the guys, kind of like DB Sweeney in like 1970, right? But he goes, no, I think they're dead, and I'll tell you why they're dead, because they were very boastful. So he goes, at some point, 30 years after the fact, that they were still alive, one of these guys would have came out and said, oh, you know what? I got away. That kind of deal. They would kind of rubbed it in people's faces, to show how astute they were. Because I think one of them, I think the Clint Eastwood character, he'd actually escaped from about 2 or 3 prisons prior to Alcatraz.
Yeah. And they said he had a superior IQ and he knew But the other two guys, what was it? The Englund brothers were the other 2 guys.
Right. And I think one of those guys, they kind of backed out at the last second. And I guess something happened with one of the brothers where he didn't meet up with them. I think either he missed it or he got wrapped up with the authorities. They came into his jail cell that night. 2 of those guys, or at least one of those guys, didn't meet up with with the other 3 that escaped. But I saw it the other day. I saw the Ghost Adventures episode with it. I thought it was pretty interesting. And tying into this kid, who is now, what do we talk about? He was missing since September 11th. You're almost going on a month where this kid's disappeared. Let me ask you this, Mike. Does he turn into DB Sweeney? Does he turn into the guys from Alcatraz?
No, there's too much more technology now that we have in this society. Someone's going to find him. Someone's going to be like this with a phone, like at like a 7-Eleven in Georgia at like 4:00 in the morning. And this kid's going to come like strolling in and someone's going to be like, that's him. Bam, bam, bam. Hit him like 5 times with a camera.
What are the odds of him disappearing, in your opinion? Completely, never to be found again?
I'd say like 30%. I think it's 70% that he's going to get caught.
They're saying if he makes a big mistake, like you mentioned, he'll get caught. So
listen, man, he's got to eat. He's got to eat and he's got to drink. He needs food and water. So he's eventually going to show up somewhere.
Yeah. And
someone's either going to catch him or kill him or whatever. That's basically what's going to happen to that kid. So.
Yeah.
But I think that's about our time tonight. Let's wrap it up with some plugs and we'll get the hell out.
Wrap it up like Dave Chappelle, right?
Wrap it up, B.
All right, we'll hit the usuals. DJ Chris Clash. I had a really good time DJing this kid's party tonight, so hopefully many more. I'm pretty busy this October, but November, December, I seem to have somewhat of an open calendar. Hit me up, www.djchrisclash.com. Any sort of party, wedding, big event, small event, backyard party, you name it. I'm your guy. Mention the podcast. I'll work with you a little bit in terms of pricing. Hit up Jay Cristiano, 844-442-7334, Cardinal Financial. Give the code 4215. If you're in the refi or purchase market, Mad Donkey, 3207 36th Avenue, Tommy D's Place. 5-Star Shopping by Tommy, 917-559-8264 for all your shopping needs. And we're good on my part.
All right.
Look at those flowing locks, Mike. Holy shit. This guy looks like Legends of the Fall. Holy shit.
Old Thor. I got to it's too much.
Let it grow, my friend. Let it grow.
Yes.
For those follically challenged, let it grow.
Feels so good. As usual, Pat Dixon. Check him out, New York City Crime Report. Jack at I Can Pain. He's got some new stuff up. Check out his site on Instagram. Promatic on Twitch. And Christine Meehan-Berg. You can check her out almost every week. Dylan's in Queens. Brand new show every week. And that's about it. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks for listening. Subscribe, like,
subscribe, share. We see you later.